Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our video review of the Vankyo Matrix Pad Z10. This is an Android tablet that has, as the name suggests, a 10-inch Full HD display, along with 3GB of RAM and a quad-core processor from MediaTek that sells for $160. It also has a full aluminum unibody design that's fairly premium for the relatively budget price. Its closest competitor would be the likes of Amazon's Fire 10 tablet, but this has stronger specs on paper, including an extra gigabyte of RAM, which should definitely improve the multitasking experience, and also having a more premium construction. We do have a fairly stock install of Android, and Vankyo has been making a few generations of tablets over the past few years. The most recent tablet was a 7-inch model that had an Android Go operating system, and that was a really low-cost $60 option, but this is one of their more premium models on the market. Inside, we have 64 gigs of built-in storage, which should be further expandable using a micro SD card slot. It also has built-in GPS, and there's a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera and an HD quality front-facing cam for video chatting. Accessories include the charging cable, which is using micro USB, so not the latest USB Type-C standard, unfortunately, but it is what it is at this relatively affordable price. And also a very nicely documented instruction manual in multiple languages. There is a pre-attached screen protector on the display, which should protect it against some damage as well as scratches. What's also neat is for the price included in the $160, Vankyo also gives you a custom case as part of the value. It's a very clean overall look, and it's held magnetically into place, so whenever you open it up, you can then pop in the tablet like so with these very detailed instructions. So just as a demo, this is what it looks like once popped into the Folio case, and you can see that it closes up very well because it is a custom-made case. It still gives us access to all the ports on the side as well as the camera. And now here's a look at it using the Folio kickstand mode, the first angle, which is the most upright, versus further leaning down if you are perhaps at a table that's slightly lower as well. So taking a closer look at the design of the Z10 first, initial impressions would be that it's actually very solid in terms of its construction and weight, because as aforementioned, the entire tablet, including the edges here, are made out of aluminum. The only plastic strips are on the top here and on the bottom, which are used for improving the antenna reception. The bezels on the front are not the smallest, comparable to Amazon's Fire 10 HD tablet, and allows you to grip the tablet pretty comfortably, but they are by no means invisible, and not as small as, say, more expensive tablets like the iPad Pro. Just as a quick size comparison, here it is next to the T-Class P10 Android tablet that came out a year and a half ago, also has a 10.1-inch display, but you can see here that the bezel size is a little bit smaller than on the Vankyo Z10. As a result, the dimensions are going to be a little bit longer on the sides, as you can see there. In terms of connectivity, on the side we have a mini HDMI port, which is pretty rare these days. Allows you to connect it directly to an HD TV or a monitor to have a larger viewing experience for media. There's a micro SD card for expanding the built-in memory, standard 3.5mm headphone jack, micro USB port that supports OTG for connecting mouse and other accessories, volume rocker, and a power key, which are both extremely tactile and responsive, clicky and easy to press on. And then on the rear, there's just the 13 megapixel autofocus camera, along with the dual stereo speakers. Now, I do wish that the speakers would have been placed one on the left side and one on the right side for more separation if you're watching a movie or soundtrack, but at least it is a stereo set. Returning to the tablet here, again, it's a 10.1-inch display using IPS technology, which means that the viewing angles are very wide and generous, and overall offers pleasing colors as well as sharpness for a budget tablet. This is as bright as it gets, and overall still is visible even when there's some sunlight or light shining down on it. Responsiveness is also quite good. It supports up to 5 fingers for multi-touch, so it supports pinch to zoom and the standard gestures that you're used to. And again, we are running on a pretty stock install of Android 9.0 Pie without any signs of bloatware or pre-installed extra applications, which is really good. There's a swipe up gesture for the navigational drawer, and if we tap on the volume keys, you can see the standard Android Pie kind of layout here. So this is, again, pretty up to date as far as the software is concerned, which is definitely good to know. Otherwise, we have all the standard Google applications built in by default, including access to the regular Play Store. We have access to Google Drive, YouTube, Maps for turn-by-turn directions with built-in GPS. There's even a file manager from Google built on in, as well as Google Photos, Music, and Movies that rounds out the entire experience. So let's begin by taking a closer look at how it performs as a video and media streaming tablet, which is definitely going to be one of its primary use cases. And as a whole, you can see that the loading back speeds are actually quite respectable. Let's do a quick audio demo here with the built-in speakers. Takeaway would be the audio quality is decent. Now, it by no means is the most impressive sounding speaker I've ever heard. It lacks a little bit in terms of bass and depth and can be a little bit tinny when you push the volume extremely high. But as a whole, it does get quite loud, and if you're just watching some quick clips on YouTube, it certainly fares pretty well. You can always use headphones to really improve the audio experience, or use wireless headphones with built-in Bluetooth. Of course, with that being said, it's not going to be completely buttery smooth like we said before. Sometimes your animations might be a little bit jumpy or jittery compared to, again, flagship level tablets. But as a whole, because of the 3 gigabytes of RAM, it's still able to store a good number of applications that's running in the background without really disrupting the overall performance. One also nice thing about this is because it is running on Android 9.0 Pie, it supports picture-in-picture mode. And that means we're able to go back onto these main screen here and still do other tasks like web browsing or checking my emails, but at the same time still have this window playing in the background, a video or some music, which is pretty cool. So next, let's look at the web browsing performance using Chrome, which has been installed here by default, and it's actually opening it up pretty well. You can, I would say, have a handful of tabs open, up to 7 or 8, before you really notice too much lag or delays, because again, 3 gigabytes of RAM is actually pretty good for a tablet, even here in 2019. Tablets in particular have never had as much RAM as on the flagship smartphones, so for example, the latest Huawei MediaPad M5, which is a premium flagship tablet, only has 4 gigs. So this is actually quite good. So I searched The Verge, and let's see how long it takes to fully render this page. The Verge is a rather complicated site, but you can see here that after a split second, it seems to be actually fully loaded, even with all these different video elements as well as images, in addition to ads in the background. It's actually doing a fairly good job, and scrolling here is surprisingly smooth, as you can see here. So it's been optimized to perform quite well. Now, the built-in battery on this tablet is 6,000 milliamp hours, which is rated to last around 10 hours of use. So battery performance is quite good, I'd say, for a 10-inch tablet. It's not extraordinary, such as compared to some of the latest iPads in terms of optimization, but overall, for a budget Android tablet, I think it does a pretty good job. Let's take a closer look at the camera performance next. So the camera app is pretty much the only proprietary app that we see designed from Vankyo. Everything else is stock Android. I can take a quick snapshot here, just simply tapping on the subject that I want to take an image of, and capture that image here with the shutter key. It's actually relatively fast to capture an image, and once your objects are in focus, they're decent quality. It's definitely good enough for scanning in documents if you are just someone that's keeping those notes for business purposes, or if you're a student. And then further along here, we also have a toggle that you can press on to capture images in HDR to bump up the contrast. Now, video can be captured up to full HD resolution, but what's kind of strange is it doesn't seem like it gives you an option to downgrade the resolution either. So you can tap on video quality, and full HD is the only option there. I would have expected 720p or 480p, but it's not something that you can really adjust here. So a very basic application. Reviewing those 2 quick snaps here, you can see that, again, the quality is decent when it comes to just quick document scanning and very simple purposes if you don't have a better quality camera with you, but it certainly does suffice, and I would say, again, average, if not slightly above average quality for a tablet camera. Front-facing camera is really the same story. It's actually decent. Even if you're in a slightly challenging or darker environment, it still seems to pick up your face without too many issues. When it comes to productivity, using this tablet with, say, the Gmail app also works for the most part quite well. Now, as we can see here, it does have the ability for you to toggle between up to 3 side bars, so it does tend to take advantage of the larger screen real estate here, which is definitely good to see. Additional features which you can take advantage of built into Android 9.0 Pie include digital wellness controls, parental controls, in addition to an eye comfort mode, which will turn off the blue light, making the screen yellowish. That's slightly easier on your eyes as you're falling asleep and watching content maybe in bed. You're also able to access a reading mode, which is something that's actually a bit more specific to Vankyo's Z10. They customize this function and it turns the entire display black and white, which makes it a little bit more useful if, say, you're reading back an ebook, and it does make it a bit more comfortable. One thing you aren't able to do, however, unlike some of the stock Google Pixel devices, is to change the layout of the navigational bar. So this seems to be still stuck maybe as a choice by Vankyo. So unfortunately, you can't leverage the gesture system, such as on the Essential phone or the Google Pixel phones. There's really only the gesture of jumping to the camera and none for changing the orientation of the buttons. And then tapping on the Android 9.0 Pie icon under settings, we can see that it is indeed running on Android Pie Edition. Otherwise, we can install all the latest applications in the Google Play Store, whether it's games or productivity apps. Loading speeds, it's going to be a little bit longer in terms of sometimes resuming a game or title, but all in all, not too bad once you do open up a game. With that being said, I would not consider this to be a powerhouse. Again, in terms of the CPU, it's not octa-core. It's also one of the lower end CPUs from MediaTek. That means that it's going to do perfectly fine for simpler games and titles like this, or 2D type games like Stack, for example. But if you are trying to run Asphalt 10 or trying to run PUBG, it's not going to be the best experience. And so we try out a more complicated level of this game, same thing can be said, still is loading back actually quite well in terms of the frame rates and the overall responsiveness, as you can see here. But for more demanding titles, it will definitely have a little bit more trouble. So we do have, again, quite a few applications now running in the background, but it still is doing a fairly good job. If we jump back into this Fruit Ninja game, you can see here it's going to just resume in a moment from where we left off. So it still is holding all of this content in the RAM, which is fairly impressive. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Vankyo Z10. Strengths of this tablet would definitely be the construction quality. The included Folio kickstand is actually a great addition at a value price, and overall the screen quality itself is also quite good for around $200. In addition, the general responsiveness of the UI is also more than acceptable as a casual tablet to use if you're lying back in bed or in the couch, for reading back ebooks and magazines, for browsing the web, streaming and watching videos. It serves a great purpose for all of the above. Also is a good choice maybe as a family tablet or those for kids or the elderly. Again, it's not going to be a real powerhouse, so if you're looking for something primarily for the purposes of gaming, it's not going to be your best choice. But again, for watching back videos and for lighter purposes and tasks, it certainly does a pretty good job. Overall, it has a widescreen aspect ratio as well, and it's quite comfortable to hold and grip. This is a solid budget tablet if you are looking for an Android-powered 10-inch tablet to use primarily for media consumption as well as for web browsing.